ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
The reality juggernaut, Married at First Sight, is upon our television screens again, matching up complete strangers in a wedding ceremony and then having them live together in what producers like to call Australia's biggest social experiment, even if the MAFS experiment is one which predictably descends into drunken dinner party fights and tearful revelations. Yet somehow, amid all that, MAFS also holds a candle up to our genuine human yearning for love, connection and romance. Last year, Lucinda Light appeared on Married at First Sight. A little more experienced than the 20-somethings who make up the bulk of the show's contestants, Lucinda's enthusiasm, her empathy and her willingness to laugh at herself and the whole mad setup that she found herself in won her a loyal tribe of fans. Since her season of MAFS ended, Lucinda has been touring the UK and Australia with a series of one-woman shows, and she has a book coming out. She's here on Conversations to talk about life before and after the show and what the MAFS experience taught her about the particular terrors and delights of romance. Hi, Lucinda.
Oh, hi, gorgeous Sarah. What a delight to be here.
This new season of Married at First Sight has started. What's it like being on the other side of the screen this time round?
It's a culmination of feelings. I mean, I'm having a laugh. I just know what they're experiencing and, you know, having been there, done that, and I think they're all really brave.
Let's go back and trace a little of your own relationship history before the TV show, before Married at First Sight. Were you a little girl that dreamt about her wedding, you know, who imagined being married when she grew up? Was that something that was important to you?
To be honest, not really. I haven't been one of those little girls that is, you know, fantasising over a husband and, you know, weddings. I don't even think I made it to the prom at year 12. It just wasn't my thing. I think I came in corduroys and a vest and a cowgirl hat or something ridiculous like that. I've also had a year and a day Scottish hand fasting ceremony at Burning Man with one of my last...
Please explain what that means.
Well, I got married in the whole attire for a year and a day, which is an ancient Scottish ceremony, to a delightful love, one of the loves of my life, over in Burning Man, Nevada in the States, which is just an outrageous festival, radical expression. And we had a whole lot of friends and pink champagne and got married out the front of the temple.
And it really lasts specifically for just a year and a day?
Yeah, and the idea is every year and a day you renew your vows, so you keep it very fresh. But I think it's from the 1500s. So, yeah, you know, I've had a couple of strange weddings now.
Well, you've also been involved in other people's weddings as a celebrant. What led you to becoming a marriage celebrant?
So in 2018, I had a breakdown, I suppose you could say. I really hurt my back. My heart was completely shattered. And there, in that dark night of the soul, that is where I let go of my old identity of practitioner, body worker, holistic counsellor. And I thought, what am I going to do with this new incarnation, this new version of myself? And I thought, celebrant. And it just came to me. So part of me getting out and reframing that very dark and hard time was starting to be a celebrant. That really helped get me through and you know, recraft, you know, what the future would look like. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to be a celebrant and an MC. That's what I'm going to do with my life. So, yeah, it sort of came from there. And then, of course, COVID hit. So the weddings were very sparing. I've probably done no more than 20 weddings, to be honest.
What kind of things have you learnt about, I don't know, maybe the expectations that people bring to weddings and maybe even to marriage through walking alongside people as they plan for that day?
Well, I love getting to know all of my couples. I really dive deep into them and I just love travelling alongside their love. It comes in all different flavours. Everybody's got their own expression. But I've certainly had a pretty good hit of very individual, very earnest, very authentic weddings and people, you know, with very earnest love. So I've just found every love story and wedding is just a fantastic reflection of them, and it's come in all the colours.
You haven't seen too many people driven completely crazy by wedding planning, which seems to happen to some people.
I haven't had a bridezilla yet, believe it or not. So touch wood, so far so good.
You say that what pushed you into exploring being a marriage celebrant was difficulty in your own relationship life, your own what was going on for you. Tell me more about that period in your late 30s where you ended up going and living back home for a little bit. How do you look back at that from this point? What was going on?
You know, it's never easy when you fall apart. Like, there was so much that I reclaimed of myself and so much I found out about myself. Again, diving into non-fiction books and podcast, like finding everything for my own respite and my own salvation. You know, I dug deep at that time. So I've got no regrets. I mean, it was an incredibly powerful time and has built lots of resilience. But that was a while ago now. I mean, you know,
was the difficulty of that partly, I mean, I'm just thinking of this in the context of Lucinda, the dater, or Lucinda, the woman in different relationships. Was that difficulty partly around not having the life partner that you thought you would have, or being at a point in your life relationship-wise that you assumed?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you know, it was a relationship that I adored, I loved. I was 38 and wanted a baby, and he had an irreversible vasectomy and 2 gorgeous children of his own. And, you know, I was in the biggest crossroads, should I stay or should I go? And, you know, because we couldn't figure it out between us. And it did break me, you know, mind, body, soul for a couple of years. I mean, I'm coming up to 45 now, and the truth is I've had to grieve and really let go of the fact that I probably have missed the boat there on being a mama. Like, there's so many pictures of me as a kid holding babies, and I love to nourish children. I'm a bit of a village aunt. I've got lots of kids around. But I think it's not my story anymore. I think the world's calling me in different ways.
After the end of that relationship and you leaving and spending time back at home with your mum, you decided to move up to Byron Bay from Victoria. Why Byron?
Look, I was down at mum's for a couple of years, and at one point I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to retire down here with the grey nomads. And I had to claw myself out and just shift, state change, whatever was going on, because I love that nest down there and love, you know, being at mum's so much, but I just thought it's getting a bit stagnant. And COVID was happening, and it was really, really strict. You couldn't get over the border at that time. So I had to go to extreme measures. I'd always wanted to live in Byron. So I found a lease on a house with some girls. I flew on a tiny window where the borders were open. I flew to New South Wales and bought a registered New South Wales car. So as far as the government was concerned, I was a resident returning, and that's how I got away with it. And moved up there, I think, in 2020. Intuitively, I knew it would be really strict in Victoria, and I thought I need more freedom. I've just done my 2 years of lockdown, and I thought, I need some freedom. I need to have close access to the beach, and I need a bit of a looser community. So that's what I did. So it was extraordinary.
In this quest to relaunch your life, was it also about relaunching yourself into the dating pool?
Absolutely, and I did the most outrageous things. So I arrive at Byron Bay, and I've got my celebrant certificate at this point, but I'm pretty new, like a rookie. And we're in and out of lockdown. I love these women that I've moved in with. That's all fabulous. But I thought, I want to date, and I didn't even know where to start here. So I launched a new business called Soulful Speed Dating. And I thought, I'm going to bring all the characters from out of the woods, from on the skirts of Byron and surrounds, and we're going to come together, partly selfish. I want to have a good look at them all.
This is a very proactive approach to finding a partner.
I thought simultaneously it's great, connections where it's at. We all need it. We're desperate for it. I'd love to get to know Byron in a different way. I can bring my expertise, and it might be good for business as a celebrant.
Tick, tick, tick. So what happened? How did these events run? What would go on?
Well, it was fabulous. It sort of kept me really busy, and I travelled up and down the East Coast. all sorts of venues and different formations and themes, you know, icebreaker activities, always in really funky, cool venues. Sometimes I'd have 120 people, sometimes 80, sometimes 40, sometimes food, sometimes for vegans, sometimes with like a sexy DJ, you know, sometimes it was for LGBTQ community or all-inclusive, all sorts of different variations.
People can feel so self-conscious in those kind of situations and trying to put some version of themselves forward, and, you know, it can feel like a nightmare. How did you try to break through that and allow people to work out if there was a kind of connection or spark with someone, rather than just, you know, what's your 5 favourite films or whatever other questions might get asked at speed dating?
Well, that's the joy I love. And, you know, that's really what I learned when I was tour leading in my early 20s. Just the art of gathering and group dynamics. I've got a huge passion for that. And so, you know, you see people sort of creep in single, going like so embarrassed as their whole energy field shut down. You know, it's a really brave step for them. And that's what I love. I'd sort of warm them up, and lots of really fun activities just to really break through the ice, and, you know, activities that they hadn't experienced before. And then every time they would sit in front of somebody, there'd be a fabulous new question. And, you know, that's how I did it, just to sort of give them a question to spark conversation.
What kind of questions did you ask?
All sorts of wonderful ones. Like, what's something you've held back from your family or your parents? Who's your favourite family member and why? What are your non-negotiables in relationship? I mean, sometimes they'd be saucy, sometimes they'd be practical. Tell me about your most magnificent day. What does that look like? You know, because then you get into values and conversation about what a fabulous Sunday would look like. And you can really see that sometimes I might just get them to dance together, or, you know, do some transfiguration, staring into each other's eye.
This only works around Byron Bay, Lucinda.
Bay, you get more conservative in Brizzy, or down in Melbourne it might get a bit wilder with a bit of performative artists. Like, it was like an accordion, in and out of just like reading the room and the place that I was at.
How important is eye contact for people making that sort of initial conversation? Because again, that can be a scary thing for someone to make eye contact with someone they don't know.
Definitely. And, you know, you've got to allow for neurodivergence and all of that sort of stuff. Not everybody's comfortable with that. And particularly giving them a technique to look in each other's left eye.
Left eye.
Because the left eye is the emotional eye. And it's a great anchor because, you know, sometimes people can be wandering over the shoulder or darting all over your face. But if we connect in that left eye, it just helps anchor presence. So, yeah, there's some amazing techniques there.
You know, once someone's in their 30s and beyond, you'd hope that we'd have a greater self-confidence, a better self-awareness, all of these good things. So why can it be harder as people get older to make that initial connection or take that risk with a new relationship?
Yeah, look, I mean, I even know for myself, I've been single for a while now, and yeah, it does get a little bit tougher. I feel empathy for anybody out there that's feeling that one. It's true. I think life just comes with hurdles, doesn't it? And sometimes we can just lose our confidence a bit. And, you know, I think a lot of people are very connected into their phones now. It's hard to make eye contact on the street or, you know, I mean, I'm in my 40s now, so I'm not about to go out clubbing every weekend. I'm not a big drinker, so pubs are sort of off the table. I mean, really what I'm tuning into is just deep trust in the universe and an absolutely unwavering feeling in all of my the cells of my everything that at some point the love will come, and we'll just know that. But I think people have just unwaveringly got to know that and want that, you know, and just going out to the places and spaces where a like-minded person might be and like taking steps to get out there a bit more, you know, whether it's a tiny house build workshop or, going down to a book club or whatever it is.
So real world encounters rather than the dating apps, because that's of course been the huge transformation over our generation, and for people younger than us, that's all they've known. I guess there's pros and cons to them. I mean, how do you see the biggest changes that the rise of apps have had on the way people begin relationships?
Oh, look, I think they've got their merit and they are marvellous. I mean, I have many friends that have met on the apps, and really it's a fantastic option for people. But what I do get concerned about is just this swipe culture of there's always a better option.
Back in Byron, you'd started this soul speed dating partly for your own benefit to find a partner. Did it work?
I did meet a really fabulous person that I dated for 9 months, a woman actually, which was the first time I dated a woman. And she was just the biggest badass and the most amazing creature. She wrote me a little note in Spanish that I needed to get translated.
Nice move.
Yes.
Did that, dating a woman for the first time, did that change your sense of your identity, of who you were in relationship?
Well, look, I loved the experience. I thought it was fantastic emotionally, the psychology of it, the depth of that. I felt like I wanted to try that before my time was up, but I also, sadly, had a recognition that I'm quite hetero within it, which was hard for her, because there was quite a lot of resistance from me, and that recognition that I'm really holding space for a husband.
So in that recognition, you decide to apply for this reality television program, Married at First Sight.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It was really spontaneous, I've got to say. I don't have a television. I'm not a television watcher. And it came up on my screen, on my social media. It was like, do you want a husband, Married at First Sight? And I sort of vaguely knew about the show. And I just applied very spontaneously, submitted a little video, and then the next minute, the application, just every couple of days they would contact me for something else. It was a very comprehensive application. In fact, it went for about 2 months. And they wanted to know detail of who I am, what I want, every medical test on the planet, like testimonials, like you name it, interviews with producers. Like, it was a very, very comprehensive process.
And as you were going through that, Lucinda, were you getting more excited, or were you starting to think, wait a minute, what am I finding myself in here? How were you reacting to that process?
I was quite unwaveringly excited. I definitely had a couple of very pragmatic, risk-averse friends pull me aside and say, hey, we know you're excited, or, the application may be going so far, but we just want you to know the risk of this because, it's a show that stirs drama, and have you seen it, and really look at the whole picture there. But there was a part of me that was just really excited to maybe showcase my values and the way I live and the way many of my tribe live in that open-hearted way, and conscious, clear communication, all of those things that we hold dear in our tribe that, is often underrepresented in television. I thought, you know what? Whoever I get paired with, I'm just going to give it a red hot shot.
Did you watch any episodes in this lead up?
When it was coming really close and I thought, it looks like it's happening, I binge watched like a full-time job the season before. So I had a very clear perspective.
And that didn't give you pause?
I actually really thought there was merit. I respected the experts. I thought there's a lot to learn. There'll be blind spots that are brought up for me. They're going to do their best to pair me with somebody that they deem fit. I thought they tried their hardest in the season before, and I thought, let's go.
Once you'd been cast, you know it was going to happen, you'd kind of gone through this long process and suddenly it was all on. What sort of manifesto did you go into the show with?
With a big old open heart, expecting the unexpected. Resistance is futile, so I let go of that. I thought you were going to trust this process, really take it on the chin, what, is told and reflected, and just enjoy the ride.
So 2 weeks after the news that you're going to be on the show, it's your wedding day. Tell me about that day. Walk me through it from waking up to walking down the aisle. What happened?
Well, it was quite extraordinary. It was I got taken out to this little Airbnb in the middle of the country. The next morning, hair and makeup was wham, wham, wham. They were very quick and efficient. And then, you get a whole lot of photos, and then I got picked up in a limo. And as soon as I got out of that limo, it was so incredible coming into this very high vista part of the Gold Coast with this extraordinary view. And when I got out of the limo, there's Mum and Dad. And as soon as they saw me, they were both just wet-faced. And so did I. Tears were already flowing. And then, and there was about 80 cars. It was all the crew. It was just extraordinary, this television set / wedding show. It was mind-blowing.
Were you nervous?
I was, but I was also holding my own sacred ground. I just felt sort of ready and open, and I had some of my deepest loves there. I would have loved more. I could only, you're only allowed 10 people. I managed to squeeze an extra 2, giving them a role as MC and witchy woo woman with the sacrificial chicken wing. I was like, no, we need these 2 as well. But yeah, I felt really supported. I felt ready. I felt good. And excited. I think I was just excited.
And then waiting down at the end of the aisle was someone you'd never met, had no idea about them. What were your first impressions when he turned around?
Well, I thought, gosh, what a hunk of spunk. I thought, yes. I was even more excited. And then, of course, we had all the storm and rain and the elemental wild winds happening, people running. I had my beautiful friend who was she was about to have twins in a couple of weeks or a month or something like that, but it was just chaos at one point, everybody running for shelter. But it just all made the more entertaining day that was, really.
How different was it from the sort of wedding you might have held if it wasn't being done for television? Or was it true to you that day?
Look, there were parts. They really asked for my contribution, and I did. I had one of my dearest friends MC, and he actually wrote this most incredible song. I had a couple of friends, actually my mum and one of my best friends, do a speech. There was a lot more that happened. Of course, only so much is shown in a couple of minutes, on that night. But look, it's still very TV. It's like stop, start. That's your dance. You sort of no quicker begin the dance. They're like, can't, that's done. We've got what we've needed to. So it's a very abridged version of what would hopefully be, and I hope in the future for me, a slow day where you really take your time and savour every moment.
And then after this big television ceremony and the reception, you and this stranger are packed off to a hotel suite together. What on earth is it like to live with somebody that you've only just met?
Well, yeah, I think maybe I was too keen as a bean. I was like, well, I'm married, let's roll the sleeves up and get into it. And I think it was a bit much. I think at some stage Tim compared me to a leaf blower. He was like, you start a relationship really quietly and gently, and in retrospect, I probably should have just given it a little bit more space.
Did you ever get to a point where you'd forget that the cameras were there? Did the relationship ever become, real in that sense?
100%. Because I could talk about my feelings and emotions till the cows come home. But there was absolutely real moments where it all drips away, where you forget cameras are there and you are in the moment.
The dinner parties are a huge part of the Married at First Sight experience, where all the couples get together and imbibe, it seems, an enormous quantity of alcohol and then share their delights and often their grievances with their partner and other people at the table. The drama that happens, that interpersonal drama, which is part of what makes it a certain kind of compelling television. Did you know, is there an awareness that at some point someone's going to have to swear at someone or there's going to have to be some explosion for this to work as TV and we're all going to hang around until that happens?
Well, I tell you what, Sarah, if the explosion doesn't happen and if everything's not out on the table, you can bet your bottom dollar we're there till 3 and 4 a.m. So we, as a cast, we got really good at just going for it and getting it all out on the table so we can all get out of there quick smart so they could make their good television show. So, you start to realise the sooner the better, really.
There's a different atmosphere around these commitment ceremonies, which also happen regularly on the show where couples are invited to commit or leave the experiment. What are they like to film?
Well, that was my favourite time of the week because I'm so nosy, let's be honest. I just love the reflections from the experts and being a fly on the wall to everybody's relationships, seeing their progress, seeing their blind spots, seeing their dynamics, seeing how other couples sort of get in there and give feedback.
Well, you certainly went into the process as someone who is self-aware, who has a sense of themselves in relationships. But did you learn things, do you think, from those the perspectives offered by the experts on the show, the relationship experts and the dating experts who give commentary and feedback? What did you take away from that? Anything new about yourself?
Yeah, lots. Yeah, I mean, the leaf blower is one thing.
That going in too hard, too fast.
Yeah, I think so. And just, maybe a little bit more attunement there of paring it back, getting back to basics, like just getting to know that person on a deep friendship level. And I learned a lot. It's been a pretty, humbling experience. It's taught me lots.
Podcast and broadcast. This is Conversations with Sarah Konoski. You can find more conversations on the ABC Listen app or go to abc.net.au/conversations.
Lucinda, things didn't work out ultimately between you and your on-screen husband. And, rejection is hard enough to deal with in regular life. How did it feel to have the rejection that you experienced on the show watched by millions of people?
Look, it was a little bit humiliating at the time, but also simultaneously timing and not quite right and an intense experience. And there was part of me that just knew deep down not to take it personally.
So once you decided to leave the program and return to the world, what was that like?
When I left the experiment, I went back to Byron and sort of packed up my life, which was sort of 4 years, and, just had some parties and loosened up a bit and just sort of enjoyed my summer, and then headed back to the Great Ocean Road, back to the family property, and got ready for, because there's a little bit of a gap between when you finish and when it comes on air. And then I was just, embrace myself as we sort of watched the show unravel.
What was that like, Lucinda, to sit and watch yourself and watch this thing unfurl with everybody else?
Look, sometimes I was embarrassed. Sometimes I was hiding under a blanket. Sometimes I was like, I wish somebody had told me about purple shampoo. Sometimes I was absolutely in hysterics. I found it fascinating to watch couples who had become my friends, what was happening behind their closed doors, or the story threads, the narrative, the arcs that were happening for them, things I didn't know. But at sometimes it felt really unfair.
How did you feel about your own edit? How did that portrayal feel to you? Did it feel true?
I think I did very well. I got a good edit. I think they sort of decided whatever it was that I was, a huge part of what I am. I am, I say this in my shows, I'm as flawed and fabulous as the next person. I've got issues in my tissues. I am absolutely a work in progress. Part of the last year is me just been sort of stripping down this projection of, I don't know, Mother Teresa or whatever I was portrayed as out there because, you know, I'm all of it as we all are.
It's led, as you say, to a whole lot of new kind of professional ventures for you. Tell me how, right back though, you started your working life.
Well, look, I didn't go to university. I finished year 12. In fact, before I went into year 12, I spent a whole month with my best friend in Indonesia and just fell in love with travel. So all throughout year 12, I worked a part-time job and then worked madly in hospitality, 70-hour weeks to get myself back over to Asia. Fell in love with these identical twins that my best friend, she fell in love with the other identical twin. And then I came back to Australia after a year in Asia, just fell in love with India, Thailand, mostly Indonesia, and started speaking Indonesian. And when I came back to Australia, Mum found a little ad for Intrepid Travel Enterprise, and I went for it, and I got it. And I was the youngest tour leader they'd ever employed at 19.
19?
19. Next minute, 2 weeks after, I was off to Thailand, and I spent 7 years with Intrepid. And I always say it was my university. It was my alternative to that. And it just set me off on a passion for people and tuning into people's, you know, emotional intelligence and group dynamics. And
you must see some things as a tour leader or deal with some challenging personalities. What are the qualities that really let you do that role well, do you think?
I think, like, I am probably just a bit of an adventurer. I'm a bit of a, like, let's go. You know, I'm a bit impulsive. You know, I'm not very risk adverse. I'm just like, yes, let's do the adventure.
So you weren't the tour leader with everyone's passport photocopied and cared for it?
In fact, my accounting was disgraceful. I'd get in trouble every trip for having, but yet I'd get 5-star reviews from people because we just had so much fun together. I could meet them wherever they were at and just love them for where they were at. And I had such a passion for culture and place and people and all of that stuff. So I'd shine in all of those arenas, but not so much the organisational aspects.
Over those years, you must have had some hairy moments. Travel inevitably involves that. What stands out when you think back about, that could have gone really wrong at that moment?
God, there's been so many moments. I'll never forget coming over from a little island in Indonesia on a boat. We'd been over to Menjangaring Island snorkeling, and the next minute these massive whales were right next to the boat. Like, I'm talking ginormous, like the size of an apartment. And it was frightening, exhilarating, exciting, all in one breath. So that was a memory that stuck out. As far as funny stories, I'll never forget this beautiful woman. I think she was from Korea, which was a bit unusual to have a Korean person. I loved that. But we were out at some snorkeling trip, and all of a sudden I see this fully dressed woman with her wedges just bobbing above the water, and that was her snorkeling, just fully clothed with the wedges, just bobbing. And that was a classic. I mean, there was so many classic moments.
You grew up on the Mornington Peninsula. What was home like when you were a little girl? What kind of things were important in your family house, do you remember?
We had such a beautiful Baltic pine home right on Fisherman's Beach, so just a stone's throw from the beach. And my brother, he sailed sabots, and we'd go and collect crabs. And we had a heritage listed home next door with big old trees. So we'd sort of go into that property and ramble. It was just so cool on the corner at the roundabout. We lived at 739 Esplanade, Mornington. And Mum and Dad were just such creative beings. Like, my dad, really at the heart of it, is quite a visual designer. He's spectacular in space. And they had an art and craft barn, Mum and Dad, sort of near Red Hill. And it was an old apple cool store that they emptied of apples and put artisans in every chamber. And that's where my love of scrolls came in, because we had an old pianola, and that just used to play the honky-tonk pianola as the smell of scones would just waft from the tea rooms, and all these artisans would be alive from, it was when craft was really in the 80s. So, tapestry and pottery and dried flowers, florists and this and that. And, even to this day, I collect pianola scrolls. And that's what I love to sort of drop down. I did with the manifesto with John, and I love to write on them and, journal on them.
So were you a creative kid growing up in that sort of atmosphere? Were you an arts and crafty little person?
100%. So, my mum would just always put colouring in stuff in front of me. Like I could colour in for hours and draw, which I still love to do. In fact, my new book is littered with my drawings. I think it's got about 45 of my little sketches and drawings in it. And what else would I do? I had a pink tape recorder. It was my favourite childhood toy.
What would you record on your pink tape recorder?
So I would lock myself into my tiny little cupboard room. I had the smallest room in the house, but I loved it because it was mine. And also out the window was the rooftop, which I used to declare to all my friends as my stage. I was a terrible violinist, so I'd play the violin. I would speak, I would do poetry, I would journal, I would diary, I would go, I think Mum found a couple of the tapes and she was just laughing her head off because there was complaints about this family member or that or, just rambling, whatever would come out in the moment. But yeah, my pink tape recorder I just loved. I had a Paula Abdul cassette, I had a Rat Pack cassette, just the usual.
What was school like for you? What kind of fit was school for this very creative, introspective little child?
Introspective, a little bit of an ambivert, as extrovert as I am introvert, a little bit ADHD, very distracted, very distracting, exceeded in, I suppose, arts, drama, literature, debating, but everything else from sports to math to science to whatever it was, really, wasn't great.
Debating requires, the ability to follow a train of thought and a logical turn of phrase. That's a part of your character then.
Yeah, look, I don't think my content was crash hot.
You made up for it in showmanship.
I made up for it in showmanship and just passion, just pure enthusiasm. They'd always put me last. I'd be on the rebuts and my team would gather around and we'd come up with some good rebuttal. And I had this fabulous debating teacher. She was a master. And we used to go around Victoria and state debate, and we were a good team. And it was sort of a shame I left in Year 9 and joined another school, a high school. That was actually Christian Community College, Year 7, 8, 9, where I was hugely into debating and so passionate about it. And then I went to this school that it wasn't cool, debating wasn't cool there, so it sort of dropped off the... Yeah, it dropped off the Richter, but it's part of my passion. I love speaking, I love emceeing. I'm about to sort of get into keynote speaking, and yeah, I love it.
Looking back, you see that behaviours or tendencies of mind that get called now ADHD, but that's a diagnosis you only got a year or so ago. Tell me about that, the decision to look into that and what it's meant for you.
Look, I'd never been curious about it, but, birds of the feather flock together. Seemingly most of my best girlfriends have ADHD. And for about maybe 5 or 6 years, they've said, Lou, you need to look into it. I think you've got it. It came from so many different girlfriends, actually. Have a look into it. And I just kept putting it off, to be honest. I was like, I'm fine. And then last year, it so happens that a beautiful lady in our community is an expertise in ADHD. She's a doctor and her specialty is ADHD. And I thought, well, let's just go down the train. And she did every test under the planet. I pretty much I've got every trait.
Was medication part of of what you do then? Is that helpful for you?
No, I think I'm a high functioning ADHD person. The way I clean a home, I clean, I'm efficient, but I'll be out to the bin and the next thing I'll see a chair or that needs to be wiped, and then the next thing I'm in at the kitchen, and then all of a sudden a window's being done, and then a bit, tea towels taken to the laundry, and then that, it's all very fluid, the way I live my life, and it's very intuitive, and it does work. Maybe a little bit chaotic at times, bless this mess, but it does work for me, and I don't think I, at this point, need medication.
So getting that diagnosis for you how was it helpful? You know, it doesn't sound like you're wanting to do anything particularly different about how you live or how you organise yourself. Well, in what way was it meaningful to have that?
I think it's just been a deeper awareness, just an acknowledgement. I think a lot of women have not a lot, but there's been a massive trend of actually women realising, you know, that it's been a little bit undiagnosed and it's sort of a bit more out there now and probably not as taboo and, you know, it's spoken about. And I think that's great, just airing it out. But I sort of see the humour in it as well, just that my executive function works in a bit of a different way. And yeah, it's just making a bit more peace with myself. And I can be chaotic. I can lose keys, wallets. I've left passports in Thailand. Like, I call it ADHD tax. And it's real. It's absolutely real. I mean, I've got tiles now on my keys, my wallet, my phone. But, you know, all of this, you just got to safeguard everything and find hacks. You know, like sometimes I'll leave the kitchen and it's just really good to turn back because you can bet your bottom dollar there's probably 5 cupboards flung open still. I'm quick to get in a mess. I'm quick to get out of it. You know, I suppose, yeah, I'm just getting a bit cluier on how I can sort of resolve things that can get me into a bit of trouble.
You're in the midst of touring this one-woman show, these shows in the UK and now back here in Australia. What kind of connection do fans, audience members feel like they have with you? What's it like to, you know, you've been in people's living rooms, on their phones in such an intimate way. I'm sure people feel like they know you. What's it like when they meet you in person? What happens?
Well, it's been totally surreal and beautiful and all of the things. I'm in UK, Ireland, Scotland, Wales last year touring and doing probably 24 shows. Maybe 24,000 people saw my show last year. Sometimes I do 100 meet and greets before I even get on the stage. So a couple of minutes with each person. I love to really see them and hear as much as I can of their story and get their questions and have a big hug. And sometimes we cry together. Like, it often feels like long lost family or soul tribe. Or last night I've been in Melbourne, which was so fantastic, being in, you know, my home city that I've spent so many years in, and just around so many family, friends, fans, all of it. And it's touching. It touches me to the deepest core. It feels like my soul work, you know, that I'm just here to share authenticity and love and, you know, energy and stories and connection. And, you know, everyone's got a different fragment or an idea of who I am or what something that they got out of me. And don't you worry, I've got plenty of arch enemies out there too, people that can't stand me, you know, trolls.
Presumably they're not paying money to come and see your show, though.
People that think I'm a man, you know, trans or a fake, or what's that voice, or, you know, who does she think she is, or, you know, so it's the full gamut.
You, over your life, have experienced being single, being married, performing marriages for other people, running dating events for people, looking for love yourself. Where is it at for you right now? What are you wanting in terms of a romantic relationship, and how important is it to you at this point?
I think there's probably nothing more I want than to find my life partner. Yeah, I think I really genuinely am casting that net to find that person. So yeah, I'm sort of excited about that next incarnation. I really feel that I'm pretty aware of my best bits and my pitfalls and everything that's in between, and also my path and what I can give. The life that I'm, you know, carving out. I mean, as much as it can be really busy, the in-between notes are so important for me. I mean, I love nature. I'm an ocean girl. You know, I'm very domestic. I love cooking and family, and I sort of know what I love and what I've got to offer. And I think it's going to be really beautiful, the next partnership that I do have. I really want to find somebody special that I can spend the rest of my life with, or at least the next couple of decades.
It's been really lovely to meet you, Lucinda. Thank you so much for being my guest on Conversations.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. It's been delightful.
Lucinda Light was my guest on Conversations today, and Lucinda's book will be out in March. This conversation was produced by Nicola Harrison and recorded on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. I'm Sarah Konoski. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to a podcast of Conversations with Sarah Konoski. For more Conversations interviews, head to the website abc.net.au/conversations.